it's going to tip over into Europe, and here we go. All the things that I said in January now happening. Let me take you a year from now. You're president. You're getting into office. You've had cities that now look like Greece. You have lawlessness in some cities. You have the president calling out the National Guard. You've won. President has called out the National Guard. There are cries of fraud. There's cries, everything. The left now, the uber left, the really spooky anarchist kind of leftist left, they're now in the streets, and they are causing all kinds of damage and trouble. We're entering a season of assassinations like in the 1960s. How do you, Michelle Bachmann, take this world that you don't have the media? You don't have the media. You can't count on that. Right. They're blaming everything on you. They're blaming everything that you and your Tea Party friends just want to disrupt and collapse our government, while people are on the street saying they want to collapse the government on the other side. How do you put that back together, or what measures do you take to keep the country safe and sound without becoming a totalitarian kind of ruler?
Well, in the immediate, you have to try and work to bring about as much law and order as you can, whether it's with the governors calling out the National Guard, or whether it's with the federal government. So you've got to try in the immediate. But the other thing that the president needs to do is speak to the hearts of the American people about what is happening, and we need to ask a seminal question. Do we want to survive? Do we want to survive as a nation? And you also have to remind people of who we are. You see, we've had literally decades where school children have gone through the schools. They've never been told who we are. We need to remind them. There's a story in the Old Testament of the Bible where scrolls are found about ancient Israel, and the king has them read in the court. The king breaks down weeping. The people break down weeping. They're reminded of who they are. I've seen you weep a time or two when you're reminded. I know, I mean, it's hard to believe. I thought
it was a friendly interview.
But when you are reminded of the beauty,
yes,
it's beautiful. It's magnificent to see who we are. That's a part of reminding the American people and calling them to greatness.
It will not be for about 8 to 10% of this population who believe they know who we are and despise us. They despise us. There are people in Occupy Wall Street that despise us. I never believed this about my fellow countrymen. I never believed this until recently. And they are being indoctrinated in our universities, and they hate our guts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do I mean, you've got to take...
But a lot of it is shining the light of truth, too. A lot of it is shining the light of truth, calling them out, engaging them also, and letting them speak for themselves. When they speak, people are repulsed when they hear what a lot of these people have to say. Because really, when you're talking about the crisis point that you just described, the people are looking for a sense of calm somehow. That's what I want. I want to bring us back to that point of calm and prosperity and growth. I don't want to be over here in disintegration. That's really what you ask the people. Do you want disintegration, or do you want to survive? And you lay the choice before the people. You know, who will you choose? What will you choose? And lay it out for them. Which future do you want? And then explain to the people the very real steps we'll have to take, because what people don't understand, Glenn, is we've been living under a very false level of affluence. We aren't as affluent with our government programs as we all think we are. When you're spending $3.7 trillion, but you're only taking in $2.2 trillion, that's called false affluence. And people just need to be told the truth.
If we do nothing,
we collapse. And quicker than anyone knows. It's look, I'm not on here to be a doom and gloomer, but honestly, in a very short period of time, the United States will collapse economically. But that isn't the only collapse we're looking at.
Describe collapse. Describe collapse.
Financial collapse.
I know. Describe what does that mean to the average person.
What that would mean is that the value of the dollar could collapse, because the dollar could literally be worth sawdust. And this isn't improbable. We saw it in the 1920s in the Weimar Republic. We saw it in the 1940s in Argentina, where you have governments continue to run and fire up the printing presses and make obligations that they can't pay, and so they keep reducing the value of the dollar so that our currency could be devalued, Wall Street could collapse, and also if you have the Federal Reserve now taking on the debts and obligations of Europe, another failure, you could see the whole net. If we knit ourselves to Europe anymore, we would all fall together.
You said to me last week when I asked you a question, and the way you responded, I felt like you had never been asked that question before. What would you do to the Federal Reserve? You told me you wanted to change your answer. You told me in the hallway today.
That's right. I said, well, I'd either abolish it or make it the size of a peanut. I think a peanut is too big. I think I'd stick with abolishing it because after watching I'm telling you, hour by hour, we are watching our country torn to shreds. And just in the last week, we saw the Federal Reserve work with the other central banks of the world to offer liquidity, which is basically dollars, to Europe. Now they want to go the next step, which is knitting us together with them. Big mistake.
Do you believe that there are... do you believe that there is known... I know this is a very high standard, but you understand the spirit of it. Treason. That people are committing treason against the United States knowingly that are in office.
Well, I don't know, because no man can know the thoughts and intents of another man's heart. I don't know if they're intentionally or not. I have no way of knowing, but I can look by their actions. Based upon their actions, the actions are against the best interests of continuing the United States as we know it. It looks like treason to me from the outward. I can't say what their inward is, but these are steps that will collapse us if we do nothing. Right now, Glenn, if we just have full maintenance of effort, even if, let's say, a Republican wins and doesn't change anything that was put into place in the last 2 years, that's not even a frugal socialist. That's just a continuation of the same. If that happens, we collapse. There's no difference. Absolutely not. We have to do a thorough cleansing in the United States. And by cleansing, what I mean is we've got to go back to about the mid-'60s and get rid of the Great Society programs if we have any chance of surviving, because we will collapse in our current state.
Well, on that cold blow,
thank you very much. Thank you for leading us to. We need hope, and the hope.
No, I know.
The hope is, Glenn. You see, we can survive. But my message right now to people is that this is the last exit ramp. That's what people need to know. It's the urgency of the hour that we're in. Do I think that we